Welcome back, my friends, to yet another reading of Dome of the Rath. Chapter 4, The Return to Hairy Men's. Brown's inky, smexy, shady, crepuscular, epileptic, kinky, smoky, saucy, tenebrous, black car soared through the clouds faster than Zuckerberg could zuck your information away. Smithy hung on for dear life in the back seat as Brown purposefully drove through a flock of graceful white geese. A smile grew on his face as they hit the car one by one, smearing juicy geese blood on the windows. "Go to hell, you greasy geese bastards!" roared Brown in the front seat as Smithy rethought his life in the back seat. "You know I hate geese, Bruce," Brown said to Smithy in a jovial tone, his plump nose as red as Rudolph's on Christmas Eve. "You've told me that many times, Ross," Smithy replied quietly. They were going to the one place that mattered to them in the world, where it began and where it ended. Of course, it had been a long time since they had been back there, but this was where they had agreed to congregate to discuss getting Bertie back. "Why couldn't we have just met at my place like yesterday, Ross? It would have been much easier," Smithy asked. Brown's neck suddenly extended like a snake. It kept growing longer and longer until it almost filled the car. His head on the end of the extremely long neck stared him right in the face with a disapproving scowl. "You are on thin ice, Bruce. Thin ice." Smithy sank into the back seat in fear as the neck sucked back onto Brown's shoulders with a slurping sound. In another 420 seconds, they were at the school, and the broken-down abandoned blocks of classrooms emerged from the clouds, like ninjas coming out of the shadows. At least that's how Smithy saw it. "Good Lord, it's a dump!" Brown's face was scrunched up in a disgusted look as they landed in the parking lot in the front of the school. They got out of the car meagerly and headed towards the entrance to the office. "This place used to be a beacon of hope for bored, awkward, sweaty, hairy, filthy, disgusting, repulsive, maggot-infested, insufferable, dead inside, smelly, edgy, cancerous, big-headed, belligerent, cowardly, gullible, fat, obnoxious, tactless, know-it-all, lanky, musty, young adolescents." Brown's booming voice echoed the halls as they entered A Block after crossing the quad. Vines and greenery had overgrown everywhere, and they wrapped most of the old brick walls with a layer of slimy green. Chunks were torn out of the roof in places, a sign of the war that ravaged the school long ago. The sound of birds chirping filled Smithy's eardrums as he remembered all the thousands of young juveniles he had told to pull up their socks. Slightly melted bones from the skeleton attack lay about here and there, and occasionally salamanders would scamper out from hiding and run along the ground. Eventually they reached the school hall and gently opened the door. It opened with a loud creak, and inside the damage was most intense. Most of the building had vines all over it, and discarded eggplant launchers lay strewn about on the wrecked hall floor. "Welcome home," Rathbone's deep voice resonated through the hall as he stood at the center of the stage with Stapley to the right of him. "Hello, lads. Glad you got the message," Stapley said as he sat down on the grand piano near the front of the hall. He quickly made a robot out of scraps and placed it on the piano. The small robot was confused for a second. It had only just been given life, and now it did not know what its purpose was. Stapley crunched on an extremely burnt piece of toast as he plugged in a set of wires to the robot from behind. The robot was surprised for a moment, and then began to play Despacito on the piano perfectly. Brown and Smithy walked slowly through the empty hall, their footsteps silhouetted by the notes on the out-of-tune piano. Rathbone sat on a seat on the stage and floated up another 3 with his telekinesis next to him for Brown, Stapley, and Smithy. They sat down as if a great weight had been taken off them, and waited for Stapley to sit down next to them. I have new intelligence that suggests that Bertie was captured by the FBI this morning, as you may already know. The head of the FBI is threatening online to silence him if he does not reveal the secrets of the order. Rathbone interrupted, almost impatiently. We must retrieve him before the government finds out about our history, Brown. His steely gaze landed on Brown, who returned the look. Wait, what history, Wayne? Smithy looked confused at this revelation. He had been Rathbone's lover for years, and never known everything about it. Rathbone sighed, as if it was a great burden for Smithy to even be there in his presence. A long time ago, when there was nothing but space dust, and the planets hadn't even been formed, two beings existed. Two beings with incredible power floated through the expanses of space together for billions of years, while the remnants of the Big Bang settled. One day, eons ago, one of the beings attacked the other, probably out of boredom, but with his immense power, he sent the other tumbling out into the outer reaches of the galaxy. This was a new game for the beings. They found it entertaining, more so than floating around doing nothing. So this was how they continued for billions more years. Sometimes they would destroy a planet or two in their fun, but overall, nothing really came of their time playing this game of theirs. One day, a new being entered the galaxy. This new being was made entirely out of dark, evil spirit. Their very soul was filled to the brim with malice and evil intent. The two playful spirits greeted the new spirit peacefully, but instead of returning the friendly gesture, the evil spirit simply said, "Your mom gay," and started to purposefully destroy some of the galaxy's planets. The two spirits did not like this, so they tried to stop him. On and on the battle to save the galaxy went, until one day, one of the two spirits had a brilliant idea. They cast a deadly cosmic spell which would lock away the evil spirit inside the body of a human, one of the life forms that had evolved on Earth. This prison meant the evil spirit would be stuck on Earth forever, unable to do any more harm to the galaxy. Before he could finish the spell, however, the evil spirit attacked him, causing the cosmic spell to backfire. As a result, all three spirits were sent down to Earth in human form, all trapped in frail human bodies. For centuries of Earth years, these beings continued their struggle against the evil one on a much smaller scale. After years of fighting, the evil one finally began a new approach, and managed to conjure spells of his own. These spells could only have disastrous effects, and would change the war. Meanwhile, the two beings had settled down to teach at a school, Hairy Men's High. This was a perfect way to blend in with human society, while still hold a degree of power. Yet out of some selfish desire to return to their true form, they are still trying to find a way to turn back, even to this day. Holy mother of mollusk! Smithy's world was torn apart in a few small moments. "You're the two cosmic beings!" he exclaimed, wide-eyed. Brown and Rathbone nodded slowly, with a look of acceptance on their faces. Smithy could not hide the fact that this revelation only increased his affinity towards the two men. "Well, why don't we make it a cosmic foursome?" Smithy said cheekily with his tongue in his cheek. Rathbone looked surprised at first that Smithy would let Brown and Stapley join in on their special epic homosexual activities. However, after some thought, he agreed that the tension in the air was just too thick to let it go to waste. Brown turned to Stapley with a grin on his face. "What do you say, John?" Stapley was already a step ahead of the others, and was completely buck naked. The next few hours were probably the most exciting hours of Smithy's short life. Brown and Rathbone acted as pillars, while the other two worked around them, stroking and feeling as they went. Smithy had never done this with anyone else before, but when they reached the center, there was a raging fire burning inside him, and he released this fury on Rathbone and Brown as he and Stapley switched between the two. As Brown muttered, Get out of your sandpit, men. The hot, sweaty mood carried on into the afternoon, well into the night. A couple hours later, after everyone had finished, the whole stage was a mess. Clothes strewn about on the floor, chairs overturned. Even Brown was wearing an ocean blue fursuit of a wolf. Smithy woke, laying on one of the long hall seats, and began collecting his thoughts. As wary eyes moved around the massive, decrepit hall, he saw Rathbone sleeping on the stage, on a bed of soaked NBHS codes next to Brown. Even as he slept, his dome glowed with a beautiful dim glow which lit up the hall as the pale moon began to rise outside. Stapley was asleep, hanging from the lights above the stage. Smithy didn't remember how he got up there, but he was holding a piece of toast covered in tomato sauce that was dripping onto the floor below. All this time, Brown and Boner had been all-powerful beings from outer space. This was understandably a lot to take in, leading him to question his years serving with them at the school. Smithy checked his watch, one of the only things he had left on. It was near 10 o'clock, and they hadn't actually made any plans on how they would recapture Bertie tomorrow. Lord Rathbone will think of something, he muttered, as he drifted off to sleep again. End of chapter 4. Tune in next time